go forth. Feel free to stand, get involved, because we are involved. It's about us anyway, right? Okay, let's give it up.
here in Richmond, Virginia, at the First Unitarian Universalist Church. But I have to say, I come to you with a heavy heart. When nearly half of the population living in this country is poor or low income. When more people die from poverty than cancer and heart attacks and strokes combined, there should be a national outcry against poverty, systemic racism, the destruction of our environment, of militarism and war. But instead, as storms, wildfires caused by climate change are destroying the lives and the livelihoods of millions, especially the poor and vulnerable. There's money being taken away from FEMA to build detention centers at our border. The poor continue to be pitted against each other. We continue to be blamed for our problems and all of society's problems. And we continue to be fed the lie of scarcity, of not having enough when we're living in a beautiful, abundant world. These are hard and dangerous times. Injustice plagues our communities. And so it asks us the question, what are we to do? What are we supposed to do? So 50 years ago, Dr. King said that the Achilles heel, the weak point of systemic racism, of poverty, of militarism, was for the poor of all colors, of all creeds, to band together with moral leaders, to come together with all people of conscience and make our voices heard. So he said, the dispossessed of the nation, the poor, both white and Negro, live in a cruelly unjust society. They must organize against the structures through which society is refusing to take means which have been called for and are at hand to lift the load of poverty. There are millions of poor people in this nation who have very little or even nothing to lose. If they can be helped to take action together, they will do so with a freedom and a power that is a new and unsettling force in our complacent national life. So beginning this year, we will be recruiting thousands of the poor from different urban and rural areas to initiate and lead a sustained, massive, direct action movement. So we are here in Virginia. We are at a Poor People's hearing that's part of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. Because from Mother's Day to the summer solstice, tens of thousands of people in 40 states across the country, including here in Virginia, committed ourselves to a season of direct action and launched this campaign. For 6 consecutive weeks, we gathered in state capitals, here as well as in Washington, D.C. And the result was more than 200 actions, more than 450 trainings and popular education sessions, with more than 5,000 people engaging in nonviolent civil disobedience, with 50,000 people participating. The largest and most expansive wave of direct action and nonviolent civil disobedience in the 21st century. So this campaign is more than just a series of rallies and actions. It's a new model of organizing that is taking shape across this country. So I'm here to welcome you to this hearing, into this next phase of deep power building in communities across the country, for us to continue to build. Because I have a question for you all. We're insisting on calling out the immorality of a political system that would even consider cutting food stamps or separating children and their families. We're insisting that we have a right to participate in this democracy, that we have a right to have a government that provides for the general welfare. In the words of Dr. Barber, how did welfare become a bad word? So we are saying that poverty is a sin that could and should be ended. Not that poor people are sinners. Not this distorted moral narrative that doesn't focus on healthcare or housing. And we're saying, will we all stand up and say that we lived in a time when pipelines and compressors could come through our community? We lived in a time when raw sewage could be in our yard. We lived in a time when there were more homeless people than abandoned luxury housing units. And we stood up. We took action together. We said the truth must be told. We must listen and act, because our present and our future depend on it. So we want to welcome you to this hearing. And we want to welcome you into this Poor People's Campaign. And we want to call for a national moral revival in this land. Because we know we can do that. So I want to introduce Reverend Dr. William Barber, the other co-chair of this campaign, who will continue to welcome us here.
Good evening, and thank you to this grand church and to all my brothers and sisters here in Virginia. I used to pastor in Martinsville, Virginia, the same year that Nelson Mandela was set free, and Governor Wilder won the governorship, even while Virginia still had the N-word in its anthem. We are not here tonight, I want to do a little house cleaning because of Trump. And that's important. We're not building a movement to resist Trump because Trump is a symptom of a greater problem. We also are not here because the issues of poverty started with this current administration. For more than 50 years, there's been an effort to remove even saying the word poverty in our political life, and from even dealing with the issue of racism until somebody like Roseanne Barr says something foolish, or we have an incident in Charlottesville, which is terrible and ugly, and almost every politician will denounce that. But then some of those same politicians that denounce what happened in Charlottesville will go right back to the State House and the Capitol and vote on policies that are born of white nationalism, white supremacy. Liz and I often say we had 26 presidential debates in 2016 and not 1 hour on power. Democrat or Republican. Not 1 hour on systemic racism. Democrat or Republican. So we're here to say that we need a moral uprising to shift the moral narrative. And it has begun during these 40 days with Poor People's Campaign, the national call for moral revival. And now we're deepening this across this country, particularly with these hearings. So all of these hearings, we invited all the politicians. You see the seats there. Now, don't be next, some couldn't be here for whatever. We wanted at least you to know their names because we have to have a movement that is from the bottom up and that says to all politicians, regardless of party, we have not done what we could have and should have as it relates to the issues of systemic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, and the war economy, and challenging the false moral narrative of religious nationalism. We must do more, and we cannot simply have a left versus right conversation, a liberal versus conservative conversation. We need to have a right versus wrong conversation. But a transformation. So tonight, thousands that are online, because we're showing Virginia all across the nation, and our organizers, raise your hand, everybody's been organized, where y'all at? We thank all of them for the work. We are building a fusion coalition, and fusion is when you have poor people and advocates and religious leaders, people of faith, people not of faith, and even people with wealth, who have wealth with a conscience, who come together and recognize that in every era of this country's history or world's history, you have to have a moral. Can y'all hear me? Or is it ringing? Okay. You have to have. You have to have in every era, you have to have moral agents that don't do things because the poll says it's time, but because the moral arc of the universe says it's time. They may not be understood for years down the road. So as Liz has said, Dr. Liz, we are building out deep. There's some things we're going to talk to you about at the end of this hearing that we're pulling on things that we need to do in order to have a massive narrative shift You cannot have a society where 140 million people are poor and low wealth, and they're not even mentioned in the political discourse. And if they are, it's mostly band-aid attention rather than transformational change. Right? Now, real quick. 400 years ago, the first slaves were brought here to Virginia, to the Americas, and ever since then, there's been a goal to pit black folk and poor white folk against each other, who ought to really be allies. And then to pit black people and poor white people and Latinos and Asian and natives against each other. This movement is declaring that pitting works no more, and we will and this movement will show this nation that we can have a fusion coalition, a mighty movement that can have grown-up conversations about poverty, racism, ecological devastation, the war economy, the false bar narrative, and we have sense enough to know that the same people that engage in systemic racism also help to push policies of systemic poverty and push policies of ecological devastation and the war economy, and if they are cynical enough to be together, we are smart enough to come together. We're also here, Pastor, because our deepest religious traditions say that true morality is where you stand in relationship, as Howard Thurman said, to the dispossessed. Isaiah 58, one of those great texts used in Yom Kippur, that Muslims honor, Christians honor, Jews honor, Universalists honor, says that we are called to cry loud and spare not and challenge systemic injustice. Just yesterday I was told by someone, oh, you all in the Poor People's Movement need to stop talking so much about the issues because eventually it will become just noise. My response to them was, in the Hebrew tradition, in the Hebrew language, the word for voice is koil, K-O-L. The same word for voice in Hebrew for vote is koil, K-O-L. In one translation, koil means the voice of thunder. It is time for a people who have a deep analysis, not just a Democratic analysis or a Republican analysis, but a deep moral analysis to coil. Let their voices sound like thunder, both in the street and at the ballot box and in the political offices. But not only religiously. Let me read something that all you Virginians ought to be familiar with and take my seat. That all power is vested in and consequently derived from the people. That all magistrates, all political officers are the trustees and the servants of the people. And at all times amenable to them. That's what your Constitution, amended as late as 1971, said, and if Virginia didn't mean it, it shouldn't have put it in the Constitution. Is supposed to be a trustee and a servant to all the people. That government is or ought to be instituted for the common benefit, the protection and security of all people, the nation or community of all the various modes or forms of government that is best, which is capable of producing the greatest degree of happiness, of safety, and is most effectually secured against the danger of maladministration. And whenever any government shall be found inadequate or contrary to the purpose, these purposes, a majority of the community hath an indubitable, inalienable, indefeasible right to reform, alter, or abolish accomplish it in such manner as shall be judged most conducive to the public will. If you didn't read it, you should have read it written down. And if government is supposed to be for the people and the public good, then Virginia has to face this fact that 38% of Virginians make less than a living wage, over 1 million people. That 43% of Virginians are poor and low wealth. 3.5 million white women, 3.5 million in total. The most of them are white women and children. Even though oftentimes politicians racialize poverty in order to undermine the ability of whites to see themselves as poor as well. 813,000 Virginians remain uninsured. The Congress is talking about cutting SNAP. 740,000 Virginians are on SNAP. And so tonight this hearing is really about us hearing the facts, the faces. Thanks for the politicians who came. Others will see it by live stream, but not just to hear the stories, but to hear solutions from the people that are impacted. James Baldwin said, we made this world, and we can make it again. Tonight, as we go forth now, the goal at the end of each of these testimonies is not so much applause. In fact, I would ask you when each person finishes to simply say, somebody's hurting my brother, or somebody's hurting our people, and it's gone on far too long. We're not here for fellowship, we're here for a fight. We're not here just to applaud, we're here to be appalled. But the kind of appalled, but being appalled that pushes you to action. If after tonight, you have heard nothing that says we ought to have a Poor People's Campaign, a National Call for Moral Revival, then don't join us. But if after tonight, you've been made to cry, you've been made to weep, your ears have been turned into eyes, and you have been made to see pain that should not be. And while you have life in your body and breath in your body, you want to be a part of a movement that is not merely trying to see it, but to see it changed. Then join us, because somebody's hurting our people, and it has gone on far too long. God bless you.
Virginia is not a state. Virginia is a commonwealth. And what is a commonwealth? It is a place where our fortunes are tied together, where no one can be well when anyone is unwell. When stories of pain are shared, we cannot turn ourselves away from them, go on our merry way, and imagine that we have taken care of things. Unitarians light a chalice whenever anything important is going on. Sometimes that's a service, sometimes that's a meeting, sometimes it's a revolt. I'm going to light this chalice right now and call us all into the commonwealth. But I light this chalice this evening, holding in mind and heart, as I know we all do, our siblings in Eastern Carolina. We will not forget them this night. We will hold their pain too, but we will listen as a commonwealth to the stories that are about to be shared with us. May our ears hear the truth of their words. Ooh, that's nice.
I'm Velma Seymour, and I'm a member of the coordinating committee of the Virginia Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. Tonight we're delivering and these studies on the state of poverty in the nation, particularly in Virginia, is a painful and disturbing report. Someone has been hurting our people, and it's gone on far too long. I am Puerto Rican, a U.S. citizen, Virginia resident, wife, mother of 2 daughters, and LGBTQ, grandmother of 6, community volunteer, and I'm here to tell you I am exhausted. Not because of the many hats I proudly wear. I'm exhausted because the report amplifies the fact that somebody has been hurting our people for far too long. I'm exhausted that close to 3,000 U.S. citizens were left to die after Hurricane Maria ravaged my beautiful island, Puerto Rico. I am tired of our people having to work 10 times harder than, to prove ourselves, knowing it will never be enough. The truth must be told. Of the 140 million people who are poor and struggling to make ends meet, over 64% of 38 million are Latinx. I'm tired of living among those who choose to become deaf and blind, while the most vulnerable among us are dehumanized continually. Their silence speaks volumes. I'm beyond tired of having hateful myths that portray my undocumented brothers and sisters as criminals and rapists, living free and clear off of U.S. taxpayers. That is repeated continually as facts. Because of that evil rhetoric, a young woman is living in sanctuary here in Richmond this very moment. Her crime? Seeking asylum in the U.S., fleeing from years of domestic violence, which would have resulted in death at the hands of her abuser. The truth must be told. Undocumented immigrants contributed $5 trillion to the U.S. economy over the past 10 years. It paid $3 billion into Social Security, yet they are barred from receiving assistance under the major public welfare programs. I'm exhausted. I remember riding past Resurrection City on my way to work at the Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. as a high school senior during the Poor People's March following Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination almost 50 years ago. I am exhausted from being exhausted. And I have a special message to the Virginia politicians that did not have the courtesy to show up and to listen to our pain. My message is, come November, we will remember. Repeat after me. Basta! 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 Enough! 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 Together we must answer the call to demand a moral revival. Yes.
I call forward some of the testifiers who are going to share their stories of what's going on and what we're doing about it, so that we can hear these injustices and act. So I want to call Joyce Barnes, Chad Ova, and Abby Arevalo Herrera up for us now.
I'm a home health care worker from Revere County. I worked as a home health care worker provider for over 30 years. I started work in Baltimore as a CNA. I moved to Richmond and I worked as a CNA in the Virginia Commonwealth Hospital System. In 2008, I worked as a home care provider. I've been working multiple home care jobs. One woman I worked for is an older woman with disabilities. She had a stroke. I help her get out of the bed in the mornings. I help her with her bathing, her cooking, and her writing. I help her practice her speech, which she has to relearn since her stroke. Without my help, she would be forced to live in a nursing home. However, she wants to live at home. She likes being independent and loves being able to see her family and the community, and I love to help her. I always love helping people. I'm a people person. That's just how I am. Perhaps I followed my mom's lead. She was a nurse. But after 30 years of working in healthcare, I'm not being paid anywhere near what I'm worth. Home care workers like me don't make a living wage. Financially, it's hard, very hard. I miss vacations with my kids and my grandkids. Nana, they say, why can't you come with us? Don't you see, we'll see you. I tell them, I have to work. If I miss a day from work, I don't get paid. I don't have any sick days. I don't have any vacation days. Not one single. I don't get health insurance. Finally, I got health insurance. I couldn't afford the deductibles. We don't get health insurance. It's hard. I've been working for years as a professional and I don't earn a living wage. It hurts. It hurts so much. I'm going to be honest. I'm really struggling now. I got sick last month. I got an infection from a client I was taking care of. Even though I was using gloves and protective measures, I got sick. I ended up in the hospital for 12 days. I'd never been sick. I had never been sick or in so much pain. I almost had to have surgery. That was really scary. I'm home now and feeling better. But I'm trying to figure out how to pay these bills. I owe the hospital thousands of dollars. The bill from the CAT scan came alone, $2,000. I'm really upset. I am very worried every single day how I'm going to pay this bill. My credit isn't so great, and this isn't going to help any. To make matters worse, I didn't get paid when I was sick because I didn't have any sick days. It's not right. The politicians and the candidates are here tonight. I don't know what to say. It's just about me. And there are millions of people who are working just as hard as me and who are struggling. I feel like we are the forgotten ones. I remember Congressman's good money and vacations with their family. We just want the same, but we can't. We need raises, we need paid time off, we need sick days and vacation time. We need to recognize our value. And I feel like it's my fault, but it's not our fault. It isn't right, it isn't fair. We deserve better.
And I'm really humbled and honored to be with you all tonight. the summer of 2014, I woke up. It was a beautiful day. But suddenly, it began the next 4 years of my life of an education, really, about ecological devastation and the people who suffered that. Dominion Energy's Atlantic Coast Pipeline has targeted my community as the site of the only compressor station in Virginia for a 600-mile, 42-inch fracked gas pipeline because we're rural, of lower modest incomes, and because their expectation was that we would not be able to fight back. They were wrong. At 54,000 plus horsepower, this compressor station, a giant one, even by industry standards, would bring loud, constant noise and release toxic poisons into our air and water. The health of children and the elderly is particularly vulnerable to the many toxic emissions that this compressor station would regularly release. A total of an average of 220,000 tons of annual emissions for every hour of the day for the rest of our lives. The compressor station risks an explosion hazard completely beyond the capacity of distant volunteer firefighters and would be built on 68 acres of a former slave plantation atop the unmarked graves of Union Hill ancestors. Land that was purchased from the descendants of former plantation owners.
My family.
For $2.5 million. The modest homes that cluster around this piece of property, and in some cases owned by the freedmen descendants.
My family.
Who worked that very plantation, would be worth practically nothing, while the former plantation descendants made a huge profit.
Environmental racism.
This is wrong. The majority of my Union Hill neighbors are African American.
My family.
But our county is also home to the community of Yogaville, who have been our allies from day one 4 years ago, and to neighbors of all backgrounds and races. We meet regularly in the Union Hill Baptist Church, Pastor Paul Wilson. Our community has forged alliances that are unexpected and powerful, both within the county and in the state of Virginia. Union Hill's population size and freedmen history is well documented.
Yes.
Yet state officials sit passively by as environmental racism and community devastation occurs. We are being sacrificed, and the response of our state government has been to ignore us.
More Virginia racism.
A common tactic of energy companies is to establish community liaisons to sow discord, discredit community organizers, and disrupt solidarity. This is using an old and despicable playbook of bribery, misinformation, and racial division to drive wedges into this alliance. But we are standing strong. Our hearts are grateful for the help from those willing to listen to and serve those most directly impacted. We have accepted each other's cultural, economic, racial, and religious differences and went on working. I understand now, as a white person, privileged by my race, what it means to be unheard and erased. I live in this neighborhood. I also understand that differences are powerful tools that we can use to strengthen the whole. Our collective well-being is inseparable from our individual well-being. This is a moral fight. In each moment, we are united for the purpose of protecting our earth, our democracy, and our very lives, as air and water is elemental to our every survival. It is a human right that we must continue to protect for those of us in Union Hill and beyond, because we are Union Hill, but we are all Union
que estamos viviendo sin olvidar. ¿Qué es justicia? Creo que es fácil ir a buscar la respuesta en un libro o en internet. ¿Quieres luchar por justicia? Busca a las personas que no la tienen. Mira por las personas que en pleno 2018 tenemos un grillete. Mira por nosotros que vivimos en los sótanos de una iglesia como prisioneros para poder sobrevivir. Mira por nosotros que tenemos que luchar contra el sistema de leyes, instituciones y supremacía blanca para poder ser escuchados, para lograr justicia. Hay mucho trabajo por hacer. La migra ataca a personas trabajadoras y a comunidades de bajos recursos y a los cuerpos morenos y negros y a otras agencias de la ley. La excusa somos peligrosos. No se dejen llevar por una narrativa errónea de nosotros. Yo vengo aquí huyendo del peligro que quería acabar con mi vida, que somos familias sobreviviendo y luchando por vivir con temores y dificultades económicas, raciales, lenguaje, salud, transporte, entre otros. Hay muchas oportunidades de hacer justicia. Acérquese a personas impactadas por el sistema migratorio. Mi comunidad te dirá que necesitamos el acceso a transporte, vivienda, medicina. Necesitamos que ya no exista ICE. ¿Qué vas a hacer para hacer realidad eso?
I always write things down that I feel are important. I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to speak about the realities we are living and forget. What is justice? I think it's easy to look for the answer in a book or on the internet. But if you want to fight for justice, look for the people who don't have it. Look for us who walk around with shackles in 2018. Look for us who, just to stay alive, live as prisoners in church basements. Look for us who have to fight systems of laws, institutions, and white supremacy in order to be heard. To achieve justice, there's a lot of work to do. ICE attacks working class people, under-resourced communities, and black and brown bodies the same as other law enforcement agencies. The excuse is, we are dangerous. Don't be fooled by a false narrative about us. I came here running from danger that wanted to end my life. We are families surviving and struggling to make a decent life, with many fears and hardships, economic, racial, language, health, transportation, housing, among others. There are many opportunities to do justice. Come close to people impacted by the immigration system. My community will tell you that we need access to transportation, housing, and health care. We need ICE to cease to exist. What can you do to bring that to us? Be part of the sanctuary movement by following my page on social media and donating to my campaign so that I may become free. My team has the information on postcards for you. Hands off Abby. We are powerful and we will continue to fight for our communities. Testifiers to come join us, Princess Blanding, Phil Waleto, and Reverend Linda Higgins.
Good evening. My name is Princess Blanding, sister of Marcus David Peters, a black school teacher, VCU alumni, son, uncle, mentor, community member, who was shot and killed on May 14th by a Richmond police officer, Michael Nyataki. Marcus was unarmed, completely undressed, and experiencing a mental health crisis. On August 31st, Richmond Commonwealth Attorney Michael Heron announced that no charges would be pressed against Officer Nyataki, declaring the killing of Marcus David Peters a justifiable homicide. From the moment that Officer Nyataki first encountered Marcus with his gun drawn, stating that Marcus was mentally unstable, to the moment that he pulled the trigger, delivering close-range deadly shots when 7 officers surrounded Marcus, and Nyataki suggested that more deadly force may be needed. While one officer dragged Marcus's body by his arms, one in which he was shot at, opposed to rendering aid. When the chief of police, Alfred Durham, made the judgmental statement that being naked does not take away a threat. And when asked if he agreed that there is a genuine problem with black and brown people being killed by police officers in our streets, he responded, no. To Mayor LeVar Stoney, continuously dived into questions and concerns of the family and community members, while playing the political game to secure his own political advancement. The chilling similarities that Michael Nyataki, Chief Alfred Durham, Mayor Stoney, and Michael Heron all have in common is that they are all black men that we, the people, entrusted to put in the positions that they're in. Yet they have all failed Marcus David Peters. They have all failed our community. They have all failed to see that they are part of this national problem called systemic racism. While Richmond City Council members sit in silence and refuse to extend their support in implementing solutions to systemic racism, another black baby is being born with a red X on his back.
Yeah.
While Chief Durham walks around with his head high and his chest poked out proudly, a police officer is harassing an unarmed black teen with his gun drawn, knowing that when he pulls that trigger, the blue shield will protect him. While Mayor Stoney is politicking and preaching, trust the process, a black father driving home from a long, honest, low-paying job was just pulled over by a Richmond police officer who claimed he smelled marijuana coming from his vehicle. With his hands on the steering wheel, he begins to pray and whisper to his children that he loves them, as he understands that this encounter could be his death sentence. As a brown mother sits on the couch with drops of pain dripping from her eyes, with her phone in one hand and Bible in the other, she receives a call from the Commonwealth Attorney with his decision not to indict the officer who shot and killed her unarmed daughter, who was attempting to defend herself during a domestic violence dispute, which triggered her to experience her first mental health crisis. As the Richmond NAACP sits in silence, providing zero support in the fight for justice and reformation, black and brown people here in Richmond and nationwide are being killed at an alarming rate. As we all know, that being black and brown in America is a crime. But there is hope, because I know that we, the people, have a lot of power. And when we, the people, unite, and when we, the people, vote, there's nothing that we can't change. I encourage you to join us on October 13th as we march for justice and reformation. Again, we, the people, have a lot of power.
My name is Phil Valedo. I'm editor of the Virginia Defender newspaper. I'm here tonight with my wife and comrade, Anna Edwards. See, everybody knows Anna more than they know me, so. My topic tonight is the issues of militarism and how militarism and military spending affect us here at home. Money is the obvious one. No country spends more on wars than ours. With 5% of the world's people, we are responsible for 1/3 of all military spending, more than the next 7 or 8 countries combined, and that includes both China and Russia. We're told that some 23% of our federal tax dollars go to the defense
Defense Department, but that doesn't include the cost of maintaining the nuclear arsenal, which comes under the Department of Energy, or care for veterans, which comes under the Department of Veterans Affairs, or the massive interest on the national debt, which is largely the result of borrowing money to pay for past wars. It doesn't even include the actual cost of fighting today's wars, which is a separate expenditure. The truth is that half our federal tax dollars are going to pay for wars, past, present, and future. What does this mean for us here at home? It means that among all the major developed countries in the world, and many of the less developed, we do not provide universal health care for our people. Our schools are funded by local property taxes, so poor communities get poor schools. Unemployed workers wind up in prison instead of in public jobs programs. There's never enough money for decent social services, but always enough money for another war. Each year, we're taxed more than $1 trillion for war. That could pay the salaries of 13 million elementary school teachers for a year, or wages for 19 million infrastructure jobs, or 4-year university scholarships for 32 million students, or Head Start slots for 118 million children. Jobs and education, or wars and occupations, what do we really want? Then there are the social effects of the wars on our society. After the police murder of 18-year-old Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, we saw what looked like a military invasion of the black community. Armed personnel carriers, combat-grade uniforms, and weaponry that looked like it came right off the battlefield. That's when many of us learned about the Pentagon program that transfers so-called surplus equipment to local police departments for free. Some years ago, I was talking with a teenager in my neighborhood in Richmond's East End. There were a lot of street shootings at the time, as there are now. And I asked him, what do you do if you think someone is out to get you? You get him first, he said. At that time, President George Bush was telling us that Saddam Hussein was out to get us, and so we had to get him first. These values are being taught at the highest levels. Our society is addicted to violence. It's in our movies, TV shows, all our popular culture, and it's promoted by the Pentagon, which encourages Hollywood war movies as recruitment tools, and even develops its own war video games. The military is in our schools. The teenager who shot up his former high school in Parkland, Florida, learned to shoot in a junior ROTC program at that very school. When the Reverend Martin Luther King called the U.S. government the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, he was talking about our times as much as his own. The U.S. is now openly at war in Libya, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, and Pakistan. It has military bases in 70 countries on every continent and a military presence of some kind in 150. The wars are not being fought for our defense, and they do not make us safe. They are being fought to protect the ability of U.S. corporations to make unprecedented profits, and they are making us much less safe by creating millions of enemies we never had before. And worst of all, they inflict unimaginable suffering on mainly poor people of color who are totally innocent of any crime against us or anyone else. As we demonize these same people of color, we build on and expand the legacy of white supremacy that enables the building of an empire on the bodies of the oppressed. No matter who is in office, no matter what political party they belong to, we must demand stop the wars at home and abroad.
I'm Linda Higgins. I'm the pastor over at St. John's UCC. And I have the job of putting some theological concepts around what we've been hearing about all the ways that have been spoken about, that we are living in a time when we have a moral loss in terms of our understandings. Today, sadly, we have faith leaders who not only disagree about how to care for our neighbors, but are fighting the very notion that God's children are equal in God's eyes. They think judgment is not God's, but theirs. They preach that being well off is a right, not a call to stewardship and responsibility. They argue that they can judge, and those they support for office should judge who deserves, who is worthy of help with housing and health care, rather than preaching the call for all to have food, housing, health care, and to be part of the community. They say that poverty is a moral failing for which people should be punished. That is not what Scripture says. Rather, my Scripture and all Scriptures call for forgiveness of debt, for fresh starts. We have a God, and yes, in my faith, we call a Savior who called for forgiveness of sins, not seeing how many can be incarcerated so a prison industrial complex can make money. Jesus, in all of his healing stories, made a point of restoring the people that were healed to full participation in their community. Today, that means restoring voting rights, which is the basic ability to participate in our life. We live in a time when many people do not trust the institutional church because they hear church leaders trying to defend the undefendable, who have, instead of looking deeply into accusations of misconduct by church leaders, have tried to cover it up to protect their own or those they value, rather than protecting the most vulnerable, who have not called for every child to have opportunity, to have food, housing, health care, education, but they've only focused on making sure that women do not have access to the ability to choose when and if they have children. We in the Christian church follow a Savior that was a refugee. In his childhood, he had no approval from Egypt to live there, and so was undocumented. And yet the church does not come together and speak with one voice to protect those who come to this country accordingly. We truly do live in a time of moral crisis. And though there are some church bodies, like the UUs here, mine, who try to speak out on these issues, most people are hearing, at the best, a mixed message. And that message leads many to experience the church as hypocrites, because they know that Scripture in all traditions calls for all people to be treated with care and love, to be welcomed, and to have their needs met. That is why I am glad to be part of the Poor People's Campaign, a movement that is calling on faith leaders like myself to raise our voices in moral outrage at the moral hypocrisy, because I know I am not alone.
All over the country, all over this Commonwealth, people all over the country. And the question becomes, have you heard something that says, I need to be a part, not of another organization, because the Poor People's Campaign is not an organization like you would think. It's an organism. It's a movement. We have enough organizations. But what we need is a movement where people can be in the organization but can come together around some central things that we're going to do together to change the moral narrative and therefore change the policy direction of this nation. My dear sister talked about this moral, this dangerous moral narrative basically says if you're wealthy, you're all right, if you're poor, you're bad. Well, my brothers and sisters, there really has not been a time in America that we have been in a moral crisis. The question is, will people raise up with moral dissent and moral actions and moral analysis in the time in which we live? It's just our time, right? And so we're calling on persons to join. So here's the question. From these stories that you've heard, I do want to say, when Dr. King did the campaign started in the 50s, that was hard. I don't believe any denomination or group. When we launched, since we've launched, over 12 denominational groups and religious organizations have joined with poor people and advocates to say it's time for a moral revival in this country. You should know that. Don't get so mad with the Pat Robertsons that you throw out everybody. Don't use this term about evangelicals or your problem, because I'm an evangelical. I'm a theological, biblicist, Pentecostal, Unitarian, liberal, conservative, evangelical Christian, which means I love everybody, want to spread it liberally. I'm conservative because I want to conserve justice and righteousness. So be careful how we've been tutored. Because actually, there are more, don't ever think that not many of us, one time in the Bible, the prophet said that nobody me, God said, look, I got 7,000 you don't even know about. Huh? Everybody's not pushing. That's that ugly stuff. It's just our time. Have you heard something tonight that has made your gut growl? Yes. Have you heard something tonight that has made you say, I need to be a part of a movement around this country? Yes. Are there any people in here post-60 who signed up 50 years ago or 40 years ago? Maybe you've posted 70, but you got one more fight in you. One more. Is there anybody in here that's living off of the sacrifices of other people, and you in that, fought into whatever group, and you've been waiting for your time to pay up, because you've been living off the struggle. And are there any people in here who have never really been in a non-violent, civil disobedient, constant, sustained movement against poverty and racism and ecological devastation, the war economy, and a false morality, all mixed up together, but you ready to see what it's like, and you feel something down in your soul? Is there anybody in here that says, I can't mess around and die and it not be written that I stood up while I had an opportunity to change things? Is there anybody in here that says, I don't know if the efforts we do will be the seed to a movement that will break out tomorrow, or if it will be the movement itself, but one thing I know, I've got to do something, because to not do anything is to betray my humanity and to betray who I've been called to be. We got to build deep. And because stuff is happening so fast, we got to do two things together. We don't have time to organize and then mobilize, and we don't have ability to mobilize without being organized. So we got to figure out how to do both at the same time. Because the forces of regression are working so hard, right? So here are a few things, and I'll turn to Liz, that we want to invite you into this campaign. We got a coordinating committee here. I want you to imagine if in every state or commonwealth we had 25 or 30,000 people deeply trained in the essence and the analysis of this movement, so that whether or not, for instance, these public policy people came to see us in it, we would have people in their districts everywhere to hold their feet to the fire. Imagine that. Imagine if we would believe what God said in Amos 5, and that is, you don't need everybody, but if you can get a remnant progressive thing that we hold dear, from women's rights to labor rights to civil rights, did not happen because the majority stood up, but they happened because a remnant stood up and changed the way the majority did. I want to know, do you all believe there's a remnant in Virginia? Do you all believe there's a poor? Are you willing to sign up tonight and to help us in every way through social media to find that remnant and to get them signed up? Number 3, do you think it would be of value to have, and let's say we might call it another name, but to have freedom schools where we could bring in 1,000 of poor people's moral uprising schools, 1,000 people in every state, to train them deeply in this kind of analysis, this kind of action, and this kind of articulation, so that we can not just be a movement for a year, but a movement for as long as it takes to change and transform the nation. Is there anybody here all the way until November, and then after November, that are willing to not register people to vote, but to register people for the movement who will vote, who will vote clearly, not just for individuals, but for an agenda and for a vision? Because if people are only organizing for Trump, if Trump is gone, they think the problem is gone, but Trump is in because the problem is deeper than Trump. That's why we need folk to organize for a movement that will vote, not just this year, but next year, the next year, the next year, the next year, and every year thereafter. How many of you will be a part of canvassing communities and going into the communities that other people don't go into? And not offend poor people and low-wealth people by simply asking them to vote and then never talking to them again. But registering people, do you know in the South, do you know right now in the South, if you register 30% of the unregistered African Americans, and if they connected with progressive, low wealth, poor white people and Latinos, do you know right now there are 5 to 6 southern states that could be fundamentally transformed? Now they don't tell you this on CNN because they want to keep the red and the blue. They don't want to think the red states and the blue states. There are a lot of states that aren't red or blue, they're just unorganized. And there's not an analysis that calls people to be organized. Because people are tired of voting for folk that won't even say their name or their condition. But what if there was a body of folk who understood about registering people for the movement who vote? You could change Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, and Texas. And if you change those states, you have fundamentally shifted American politics. How many of you, I'm just thinking now, if let's just say there was a gathering that formed, let's say a poor people's moral congress, bringing people together from all over the country into one central place, say in DC, to make sure that the issues we talk about here are pushed into the mainstream. And I don't mean pushed into the mainstream to become mainstream, but pushed into the mainstream to disrupt the mainstream so that the mainstream will be our stream and the things we're concerned about. Somewhere there was a massive call to action of poor and dispossessed people and their advocates and moral leaders, maybe, I don't know, 220, just some major big, thousands of people. But we forced the narrative change and we declared this nation, we won't be silent. I wonder if we could do a few things well with the poor, not for the poor, not paternalistic, but prophetic with the poor. Is there anybody in here, after what you've heard tonight, that's willing to at least try? Yes. And the reason I say that is because, you can never promise outcomes. You can't even promise you will be here tomorrow, but you can try to be here. And you can't promise anybody you're going to win every fight. But you can promise them this. We've never fought. We've never won a fight we didn't fight. And history tells us, when you really look at history, justice has been beat up, But when people have stood up, we've never really lost any fight. We chosen to fight because the first victory is the faith to say, I ain't taking this no more. That's the first victory of revolution and liberation. So, Liz, I want you to take this mic from me because I'm sitting down here before. But it sounds like we got some people that's ready to join up. Now, hear her very carefully because Liz has been doing this a while and she's a heck of a strategist and she knows the kind of long-term battle we're in. We're not playing. This is serious business. Liz?
A place where we get to hear the already existing visionary demands that this campaign has come up with. Because what we have just experienced is a call to action. And because people are willing to tell our stories and come forward and say, this cannot happen anymore. We're going to organize with people that we've never organized with before. And we're going to have a chance to really fight. In the work I come from, we have a saying that is that movements begin with the telling of untold stories. What we heard this evening are stories that should be dominating our airwaves.
That's right.
That should be at the absolute center of every discussion, every conversation over dinner, every policy that gets passed.
That's right. That's right.
But right now, it's just beginning. People are coming forward and saying, this is the truth that must be told. A year before Dr. King was assassinated, he says, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. The truth must be told. And we heard the truth about poverty this evening. People working for not enough. We heard the truth of ecological devastation this evening, coming into communities with their compressors, with their pollution, with their degradation of life. We heard the truth of systemic racism this evening, with unjust immigration policies and the brutality of our police against Black and brown bodies. We heard the truth about militarism and the war economy. And we heard those figures of the 32 million people that could be going to school. But instead, our priorities are on war.
That's right. That's right.
Here at home and abroad. And so I want to ask Sister Yara Allen to share some community and culture and theomusicology with us right now, because when we hear these truths, we have to seal the deal by singing together and by hearing why we're in this work. And so I invite Yara Allen.
Yeah.
campaign demands, because if we don't want anything, if we can't articulate what we want, what are we doing? All right, now, the testimonies you have heard tonight not only reflect what is happening in Virginia, but also across the country, because we are a part of this country. We heard from a young woman living in sanctuary here, and we know there is growing anti-immigrant backlash in the form of xenophobia, Islamophobia, and scapegoating and assaults on undocumented immigrants. Undocumented immigrants contributed $5 trillion to the U.S. economy over the last 10 years, and they paid $3 billion in Social Security in 2010, but only received $1 billion in benefits. The rest simply stayed in the trust fund. Virginia has immigration detention centers. They're in Farmville, they're in Stanton, and there's going to be a new one in Caroline County. And great, now we have 4. Immigrant children, sons 14, housed at the Shenandoah Valley Juvenile Center in Stanton, say they were beaten while handcuffed and locked up for long periods of time in solitary confinement, left nude and shivering in concrete cells. These millions of hardworking people they strengthen our economy and community, and they must be treated with dignity and respect due to all human beings. Citizens of all backgrounds have the right to citizenship that will afford them a full right to vote and participate in our democracy. We demand a just immigration system that strengthens our democracy through the broad participation of everyone in this country. This includes providing a timely citizenship process that guarantees the right to vote. It also requires protecting immigrants' abilities to organize for their rights in the workplace and their communities without fear of retribution, detention, and deportation. Conditions. 1.4 million workers in Virginia earn less than $15 an hour, and more than 6,000 are homeless. 814,000 are uninsured, and 43% or 3.5 million residents are low income. We demand, number one, immediate implementation of federal and state living wage laws that are commensurate for the 21st century, not the early 20s. Guaranteed annual income, full employment, and the right for all workers to form and join unions. An end to anti-union and anti-workers' right laws in the state. Bye-bye, right to work. Wouldn't believe if I didn't add equal pay for equal work for everybody, men and women. Fully funded public resources and access to mental health professionals and addiction and recovery programs. Equal treatment and accessible housing, health care, public transportation, adequate income and services for people with disabilities. Public infrastructure projects and sustainable, community-based and controlled economic initiatives that target poor, urban, and rural communities. Let's not forget our brothers and sisters in rural America. The wealthy and corporations pay their fair share. And that fair share goes to provide decent and affordable housing, free public education, a robust societal state
communities, especially poor communities of color, are being locked up, sent away, and killed by law enforcement. Equal protection under the law is non-negotiable. And we have the right to move freely without fear of intimidation, detention, deportation, or death by public institutions charged with our safety. We demand end mass incarceration and continuing inequalities for Black, brown, and poor white people in our communities from the criminal justice system. An end to the school-to-prison pipeline and the criminalization of Black and brown children. Accountability for police killings of Black and brown people. There has been a boom in infrastructure to support fossil fuel production and transportation. Fracking has made the U.S. the world's largest producer of both oil and gas. It has also demanded an expanded pipeline infrastructure crisscrossing the country. 2 pipelines and a compressor stations threaten to poison the air, rivers, and streams in rural Virginia. There are 12 coal ash ponds and 8 active coal ash landfills in Virginia. 8 additional, you thought you had problems in North Carolina. 8 additional large coal ash ponds in Virginia are no longer being used for ash disposal, but sit idle, full of toxic sludge on Virginia waterways. We demand 100% clean, safe, renewable energy, and a public jobs program to transition to a green economy that will put millions of people in sustainable living wage jobs. A ban on fracking, mountaintop removal, coal ash ponds, and offshore drilling. We demand a ban on all pipelines, refineries, compressor stations, coal, oil, and gas export terminals. My brother Bill talked about military and war economy. Military spending in 2017 was $668 billion. Out of the federal discretionary spending, only $190 billion was for anti-poverty programs. Under the current administration's proposed budget by 2023, 66 cents of every dollar of federal discretionary spending would go to the military and only 12 cents to anti-poverty programs. City police departments are getting military weapons and equipment, escalating criminalization of violence against poor communities. More complaints of abuse have been filed against immigration and customs enforcement than any other Department of Homeland Security agency. Can we say goodbye to ICE? The truth is that instead of waging a war on poverty, we've been waging a war on the poor at home and abroad. For the financial benefit of a few, it is morally indefensible to profit from perpetual war. We have the right to protect our communities from the ravages and weapons of war, and our final demands: an end to military aggression and warmongering, stop privatization of the military budget and any increase in military spending. We demand a reallocation of resources from the military budget to education, healthcare, jobs, green infrastructure, strengthening veterans administration that must remain public, not private. The demilitarization of our communities, an immigration system that, instead of criminalizing people for trying to raise their families, prioritizes family reunification, keeps families together, and allows us all to build thriving communities in the country we call home. And that's just a short list.
the campaign for charging me up and getting me off the sidelines. And my name's Steve Hansen. I'm from Chesapeake. I'm part of the Virginia Poor People's Campaign National Call for Moral Revival. Virginia is organized statewide by coordinating committees with members in Hampton Roads, Central Virginia, Northern Virginia, and Southeastern Virginia. Like we mentioned several times already today, voter suppression is really a big problem that causes other problems. And so in Virginia, we're really right now focusing in on empowering low-income people with the right to vote. Getting out to vote, we are training people to register voters. We're going into communities, canvassing for communities, going where low-income people live and work, in food pantries, in churches, in shelters. I think I'm particularly pleased with the work we've been doing in voter restoration rights for people who have been incarcerated and been totally pushed out of the voting scene, but are being able to move them back into it. In addition to getting out to vote out in the streets, we are also manning phone banks where we're calling unregistered and inactive voters and providing them with instructions on how to get registered. We're knocking on doors and, like I said, going out to meet the people where they're at. On October 16th, we'll transition from voter registration to get out to vote actions where we begin the process of reaching out to the underrepresented voters, making sure they have proper voter IDs so they won't be denied voting, giving them the knowledge of where they vote at, and providing them information on how to get to the voting places if they need transportation. Then after November 6th, we look at, we draw our attention to the General Assembly and also to our national leaders, and look at our demands, are considered, and the actions in the legislatures are examined under the microscope of the moral narrative we're proposing, so we can shape this country into a more moral and perfect union. You can follow our progress. I hope the website was up on the board, it's just up there. And we urge everyone to join the campaign. You can register through that voting through that website. We also urge everyone to make sure your voter registration is still active. And for those who text, if you text My Vote to 804-375-4421, you get a link to the Board of Elections website. You can check your registration and register if you need to. If you forgot that information, again, just go to our website and there's links to that. We've created a simple web link to the Board of Elections. Just go to bit.ly/BAREG18. It's on there. And so, again, registration, enablement of the poor people, and then analysis of legislative actions in the light of the new moral narrative we're creating is what we're all about. And we hope that you will realize what power we have together after being with us tonight. And I ask you to join us. We'll help you find a way to contribute to the campaign. So let us go forward together, not one step back. Thank you.
She tells me I can't say I'm old, but I'm just older than I was 20 years ago. about saying, if it takes for you to stay in this movement, I will share what is necessary for you to stay on the front lines until we win. Again, all of you here, all of you on live stream, as you heard my dear brother say, we're canvassing now. I do want to re-emphasize though, we are registering people for the movement who will vote, not just registering people to vote. Because if you vote without an analysis, or you vote without demands in this season, if you don't vote in a way that will push, Democrats to do more and Republicans to do less of the meetings they want to do. So everybody we register to vote, we want them in the movement. We want to build a community. Can I get an amen? Secondly, we must be real careful about how we define poor people, because our movement has said, poor people are not those 39 million people that they say are below the federal poverty line. There are 140 million poor people. That means there are people who don't look like our image of poverty, but they're poor. They're a paycheck away. They have something, they have a front, but underneath that, and we need to be invited because this society has taught them to act like they're not connected. Right? So, as you move into all the communities. Thirdly, this isn't playing, y'all. We're going to have to fight. And I mean fight non-violently, but we're going to have to fight. We won't win these things by just going to a hearing and asking for them. Not one thing that we hold true today was won like that. Social Security, labor rights, abolition of slavery. It wasn't won like that. It was won at times when people were even willing to put their bodies on the line. And they were willing to scream and to holler and to vote and to demand. Even when they were told to shut up. Dr. King was told in Birmingham, why don't you just be quiet and just wait? And he said, we are the longest waiters in history. Every time you no longer wait, you demand what is right. Non-violent and non-violent movements that demand work. One of our leaders told us one day, said, poor people and impacted people only have two options. Non-violent agitation, massive voter registration, participation, or guns. And we don't choose the guns because even in history, those violent revolutions fail. Because the empire uses the violence against those. You see what I'm saying? So this is going to cost. I'm just being real. We talk about organizing 35,000 people, 25,000 people in the state. It may take 10, 15,000 of them all in jail at one time to force a change in the narrative. But tonight, all of us have said we won't be silent anymore. Check yourself. If you really want to be in this remnant, make sure that you have to do it. This is not a play. And if you don't do this, people will die. And people may still die, but we're not going to let them die in silence. Somebody said every crucifixion needs a witness. We're not going to allow this to happen to people anymore. So we got to be prepared to fight. We also need Virginia and all these other states, because you have to build this. We believe in state up, it's not helicopter leadership. It is not come here out of love. We come here to hear, to help us keep moving and sharing it around the country. But we know we need more of these hearings, just like this across the state to help. There are a lot of people that just don't know how bad it is. If they knew, they would get up and be active. There must be prophetic imagination before there is prophetic transformation. There must be an awakening of the consciousness before there will be concrete actions of change. You are called to awaken the consciousness. And also, we know that because so much happens in our state capitals, if this state has photo ID laws, that you all are still fighting, right? In court. Y'all still fighting, or did you lose? What? You fought? Have all the lawsuits over your... We fought them? And you won, okay. And you won some of it. You didn't, but we got to still keep fighting, because ultimately we can't ever agree with photo ID, because photo ID didn't become an issue until black and brown people started voting. Right? And plus, it's a form of politics. But here's my point. Here's my point. We have to recognize, we have to fight hard in this work. And we have to do it not just until November, but beyond. Right? We have to do it beyond. All the things we mentioned here that happen, every movement has to have a clear target. If you have racist voter suppression laws in this state, it happened in your state capital. If this state denied Medicaid expansion in any way, it happened in your state capital. If your state had bad standing ground laws, it's state capital. If it had bad environmental laws and deregulation of companies, it happened in the state capital. If it had attacks on the immigrant community, it's happened in the state capital. There have been attacks on the LGBT communities and LGBTQ community, it's happening in the state capital. If education is not funded as it should be, state capital. If your school systems are resegregated, it's because of the empowerment of the state capital, the state legislature, and the government. If that's the target, it means that one thing that this state, this Commonwealth has to do. When we went to the legislature, some of them weren't there, got arrested. When they are back, you must build a massive Poor People's Campaign National Call on Moral Revival, Virginia style, at your state capital when they are in session. Because you are in a state where somebody won an election by the flip of a coin. Now, there's two ways to look at that. That's crazy. But the other way to look at that is if it was by the flip of a coin, if we flip the number of people who are not registered and not voting, and they start voting, we can change the election because they're just that close. The last thing I want to say to you is in this movement, and Liz and I talk about this sometimes, we must not see ourselves as the grasshoppers and everybody else are the giants. Stop telling yourself that in 2016, Trump won and extremists won. They didn't. You cannot lose the popular vote by 3 million and win. It was a racialized, antiquated, racist electoral college. It was 97 million people staying home because the politicians aren't touching their moral minds and imaginations and aren't calling the names of the real conditions. It was 250,000 people being suppressed in Wisconsin, for instance, and Trump wins by 28,000 votes. It was in Michigan, 10,000 votes and hundreds of thousands of poorly impacted people. Nobody even reached out to them or talked to them or organized them. It was because of $10 billion of pornographic sums of money that we know about. But if anybody has got to do all of that cheating to win, it does not say something about your weakness, it says something about your strength. If we can believe, as Liz constantly said, every time I've heard her speak, she keeps saying, I think sometimes miss it, Liz, they don't really hear you when she by osmosis somehow projects Dr. King. If they become an unsettling force, not just unsettling, but an unsettling force, and organize and mobilize and commit to a long-term movement, not just an organization, and believe that what we stand for is the right thing, and this is the right time. That force, the force of love, the force of truth, the force of justice, can in fact transform. We're not losing. What you see happening in America is what in South Africa they once said was, a dying horse always kicks the hardest. We're seeing the grasp of life of extremism, the attempt to stop the third Reconstruction in America, that really a future that can't be stopped, it can just be delayed. And we have to be the ones to say no to the delay. That's right. The time is right now. I cannot say it enough. And I thank you all for allowing me to talk, because I really didn't feel like talking today. I've been through the last couple of days, and I guess sometimes my strength comes as I've really been hurt over the last couple of days. Some things have happened to my mother and all of the floods and whatnot. But I want to say this to you last. It's a call to action. When we started the Tomorrow Monday campaign in North Carolina, they told us we couldn't win. Supermajority legislature. They spent $6 million of our money against us on voter suppression, governor's office, all that stuff. And we didn't win anything. 17 people went into the legislature when they were in session. It wasn't that they arrested me. It was when the next day they arrested a woman with cerebral palsy in a wheelchair. That was the front page story. And then the next Monday. And for 3 years, every Monday, not 1,000 people every Monday, sometimes 100, sometimes 50, but the consistency of it, the constancy of it, the moral clarity. And then when we started fighting, we didn't have any lawyers. I didn't tell the folk the first time, I don't know how we're going to get out of jail. But by the end of the summer, we had 123 lawyers. They had $6 million and a bunch of lawyers. We had pro bono lawyers, and then a wealthy firm said, we keep seeing y'all on TV fighting. How long are y'all gonna fight? And we said, till somebody else. And so that firm said, okay, well, we're willing to put up several $1 million of our lawyers. If y'all are willing to fight, we've been itching for a fight. You don't know who will help you and what's available until you stay out there long enough and keep making the noise. We started with 17 on a Monday, and in April, and by the next February, 100,000 people showed up at the state capitol in the middle of winter. It's not an anomaly. People coming together is not new. Black and white people came together in the 1800s. Black, white, Jew, Christian, and Gentile came together in the 60s. It's our time to come together now. And this room can build and build and build until I pray that the day, soon and very soon, we hear this. Breaking news from Virginia. The Poor People's Campaign